Part of the fun of assembling a race bike or modifying your bike is solving problems, right? Along the way, let's face it, not all of the stuff we get is going to be just a direct bolt-on super piece of cake. Sometimes you're going to have to get creative and solve some problems to get the end result that you're looking for. With this 2014 Honda CBR1000RR, one of the things I did not want to reuse was the stock coolant reservoir. This was literally in between the swing arm and the engine. I didn't want it there, so to solve that problem, I decided to go with the Motion Pro coolant overflow jug. They have an entire kit. It's going to include hose clamps, a length of hose, a bottle that can handle the heat from the coolant. It actually has a mount kit that you can use and put this right on your fork tube. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to mount this more up front on the motorcycle like we've seen with a lot of the super bikes. So what I did is I fabricated a bracket real quick. This is something you can easily do in your garage. Just thin gauge aluminum. I pop riveted it right to the actual stock fairing stay. I put a little curve to it. I've already drilled some mounting holes that I'm going to use those cable ties to hold the bottle to, and it fits in nicely. You'll see there's another problem that we had to solve with this bike. The bank angle sensor, or the tip over sensor, it literally mounts to the headlights on the bike. It's not going to work out for a race bike. Okay, so what I did is I quickly fabricated a bracket using that same aluminum, bent it up, drilled a couple of holes. I'm using the lower mounts here from the instrument panel cluster. There's not a lot of weight or stress on this, so I think that's going to work out just fine. I drilled a couple more holes in it, went and got some fasteners, and I've got the bank angle sensor mounted up front using this little aluminum bracket. It was super easy to make. Now for our coolant overflow jug. We're going to go ahead and use a couple of the cable ties that they've supplied to get this mounted in here. The real work was probably finding the right location and making the bracket. That did take just a little bit to do. It wasn't horrible, but it took a few minutes. Now we need to position it so we're able to get the hoses on it. It's going to be just like that. I'm going to bring this cable tie over, thread it through the secondary hole, and get that started like that. To hold this in place, what we'll actually do is we're going to compress the bottle just a little bit. I'll keep it in place, and after looking at it for a few minutes, I also decided that the inlet, which is right here on the bottle, right, is also going to help hold it in place, as this cannot pass by the cable tie. Let's go ahead and snug those up. So just collapsing the bottle ever so slightly right there. Now we're going to use a length of the stock hose that routed back through the motorcycle to the factory overflow jug. That fits right over, no problem. And we've got a clamp that was supplied by Motion Pro. Hopefully we're able to get this over the top. It looks like it might be a little bit small, so we might have to rethink that, and we're actually going to have to, because that clamp is a little bit to the small side. The reason for that is we're trying to reuse the stock tubing. It's a little thicker than the tubing Motion Pro supplied, so it's going to require a little bit bigger clamp. We'll go ahead and just quickly put in place the actual overflow tube. This needs to route down inside the lower fairing. If in fact the coolant boils over a little bit, it'll just push into the lower fairing and be captured. as we have an AMA legal lower fairing on the bike. So I'm gonna have to get another clamp. I'm sure I've got something in my spare parts bin. We're gonna do that right now. Okay, I went through my spare parts kit. Really didn't have a hose clamp that was gonna work great for this, so we're gonna go with safety wire. Let's go ahead and get this in position. And remember, there is realistically no pressure here, okay? There is only going to be coolant that will exhaust from the radiator, right, once it's expanded into the bottle, right? And then also, conversely, once the bike's cooled, it can draw it back in. So all we need to do is make sure the hose is not going to fall off. And safety wire is more than adequate for that job. Go ahead and get that right in the center of the nipple they have on that. Twist it like so. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to take this just one step further. I think this is actually going to do, in the end, a little more than we would get from a clamp. So I'm going to take and wrap that around the top of this nipple like so. And bring it up here. And what this is going to do, this is just really going to kind of hedge our bet. And it's going to make sure that that hose stays up on that nipple, because that's really all that that clamp is supposed to do. Like I said, a lot of times when you're building, especially a race bike like this, a purpose-built bike, a lot of what you're doing is solving problems. And you want to try and think of what can happen when you're out there. And I don't know about you, I really don't want coolant spraying out of the front of the bike. That'll hold that in place. I trim the 2 cable ties like so. We'll come back over the other side of the bike. We're going to deal with the routing here of the actual overflow tube itself. You don't have the ram air ducts in place, but I've kind of taken a minute and mocked this up previously, so I have an idea of how I want this to route already. I drilled a couple of holes in this plastic support with the unibit. I use that to anchor the actual overflow hose that will route into our belly pan. Like so. You don't want to go crazy and kink it, you just basically just want to hold it nicely. Bring it down here. I'll go with the Samco hose and get a little bigger cable tie here. Kind of try and route it around the back side of it like so. Anchor this in a couple of spots, and then if it does overflow, it will wind up right in the lower fairing, which is of course able to catch the fluid. We'll air out of our work table, and one more cable tie down here. Position that just so it'll drip down to the lower, like that. Ideally, you want to kind of get your coolant level so you really don't have a lot of that happening, but that is difficult to do, especially right out of the gate, when you leave the cooling system for the first time. Make sure you don't have it kinked so that fluid can't pass by, but you want it to stay in place. I think we've accomplished that. And trim your cable ties. And there is the installation of the Motion Pro coolant reservoir on our 2014 STG Road Racing World Honda CBR1000RR.